This is Conversations. Tonight on Conversations, my guests are Steffi Tekpete, a student of the University of Ghana and a zealous youth worker; Charlotte Mensah, a student also of the University of Ghana and also the vice president of the prestigious Club of Youth Rights Organization; then Mr. Nathaniel Amo Akwa, an astute banker practicing within one of the leading financial institutions in Ghana and also holds the position of the Deputy National Coordinator of Youth Rights Organization. This is Conversations. Let me start with the only gentleman amongst us. Why do people think that leadership is not for them and that they cannot become leaders?
I'm so excited to be the only gentleman among beautiful ladies over here, and it's a great privilege. Indeed, why do people think they can become leaders? Thinking through it, everything rises and falls on leadership. And for any team to succeed or fail, it boils down to leadership. So if a group of people decide to embark on a project and the project succeeds, then the members take the glory. But on the flip chart of it, if the project fails, oh, it's the leader. So then why should I become a leader? This puts pressure on someone to emerge to become a leader and to lead a team to achieve great success. So I think this is part of the reasons why people shy away from becoming leaders. And some people also feel they're inefficient or they can't become leaders out of one or two personal experiences that they have had from their past. But as the conversation goes deep, I'm sure we'll be able to delve into it and then we'll know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Senat. Senat mentions that there's a challenges of blames. That's why people do not want to be leaders. Miss Steffi, share with me why you think people do not want to be leaders.
That's a really interesting question. I can take it from a very personal view as well, because when I was young, I was relatively very loud, and all over the place. And then in class, when they're looking for this, they're looking for, I don't know if it was as a Ghanaian culture or something, but they're looking for the quiet one who doesn't like trouble to come and, lead. So I was like, okay, should I become calm and quiet? I tried that. I tried to be calm and quiet, and it was like, it was not saucy. I was not, getting the platform to be, or any of that. And then at the point when, in high school, when I said that I'm a bit quiet, so even going for a position like head girl, I was so scared. Like, what if people don't vote for me? What if people don't like me as I may think that people like me? Sometimes the thing that's holding us back is in our head, and we feel inadequate, we feel inefficient because you don't know if you are fit for the role. Fear of criticism, fear of what people will say to you as a result of, what can happen, as Mr. Nathaniel said. And I also talk about background. If you are from a background that, your mother tells you that, when you go to school, when you go out, don't look for trouble, be quiet, be calm, don't try anything. So if you see a situation that's going on and you know that a leader needs to step into this matter because of, fear of what they'll say, or fear of your environment or the kind of environment you grew up in, you just prefer to be in the background and not step up, just let it flow, and whoever takes the blame because you don't want to be blamed for it. So I think that's what I'll say is a reason why people do not step up to take up the responsibility or the mantle of leadership. Thank you.
Charlotte, what do you think?
Yeah, I also believe that people refuse to take up leadership positions because, as Steffi said, they feel other people are better than them. And when they go for such positions, they cannot perform well, they will be criticized and all. So to avoid any blame or criticisms, I won't go for such positions.
So more often than not, it's as a result of criticisms, it's as a result of the blame game, it's as a result of our societal values and the backgrounds that we are coming from.
Well, the list is not exhaustive. There are other examples or reasons why people don't go for leadership positions. I'm sure as we go on in the conversations, we'll be able to find out why.
And I think one extra thing that we didn't have was people's personal opinions. Personally, they stop themselves from taking the responsibility, taking it up to lead. Yeah.
I'm also sure what people they trusted also did to them. If I'm trying to come out and someone I really believe or someone of high influence tells me, oh, this is not for you, leaders are born. Are you not this? All those things. It holds people who want to come out of their shells. It holds them back. So when they find themselves anywhere, they don't want to, because this person said I'm not good, and so I'm not good.
And that is where my challenge is, you see. It has to do with low self-esteem and inferiority complex. People see other people as superior. This is better than me. This is higher than me. This person speaks better than me. He writes better than me. As for me, I am Ankonam. I'm the timid person. I'm from a poor background, so I can't do anything. So because of that, they look timid and look down on themselves. And even the innate traits and talents in them are not able to come out. And then it limits them to becoming leaders in the foreseeable future.
You know, in our previous episodes, my panelists and some of my guests shared the fact that leadership begins with the self before it gets to the others. And this is what is being reinstated here again on this episode.
Absolutely.
You know, in the book, the leader mentioned some situations in which one should not be deterred to become a great leader. What are some of the situations in the book that should not deter one to become a great leader? Let me start with you, Ms. Steffi.
Okay, so I think the one I'll pick is people with little formal education can also become great leaders when they avail themselves to be trained. You know, the story of Walt Disney stands out for me because as a kid, one of the channels I used to watch was Disney Channel. I watched Disney Channel, I watched Disney XD, everything Disney was like so exciting for me. When I get back from school, the first thing I want to do is tune into Disney Channel to go and watch what's happening, you know, with all the wonderful shows that were being shown on that channel. I think my childhood was defined by Disney Channel. So coming to the book, reading that, you know, reading the story of Walt Disney, that he was only with an 8th grade education and no potential job prospect, but he decided to forge his path. Decided to find out something that he was good at or he could do, and he worked with it and he ran with it and grew Disney Channel to the point where it is. This year, Disney was celebrating its 100 years anniversary, and I was like, wow, this was my defining moment as a child. And so for me, reading that people with little formal education can become great leaders stands out for me, also because when I look at the system now, I realize that most of the people who are leaders are actually really educated to the highest level. They have the PhDs, they have the masters and all that. So I remember in class somewhere last year, I was asking my lecturer that, what is the actual problem? Because we seem to know the process. I study economics. So in my economics class, I asked, we seem to have all the right models to solve the economic issues that we are facing. So what is the actual problem? What are we facing? What's the issue? And it brings me back to the fact that leadership is an art, and if it's an art, it can be learned. And I think watching the previous episode, I realized that someone said it's not something we learn in the classroom. Leadership is not taught in the classroom, but volunteering, serving, giving your time to other things that are meaningful, experiences. I've had some experiences that I did not learn in the classroom. I did not learn how to lead my team in the classroom. It was on the field, doing the work, going out, volunteering. That's how we got to where we are now. I don't have a master's, I don't have a PhD, but I lead a team and I'm proud of the work my team is doing. And it makes this particular, situation stand out for me. And what even wows me more is when you start reading the book, when I look at the leader, Mr. Mosiba Fuewana, look, it was very hard for me to believe that, he didn't have, all the level of education and in his growth to become a leader. People didn't think that because when I look at the man now, I'm wowed by where he is as a leader now. And so when I read that, he was also at a point where people didn't think he could lead, people didn't believe that he could lead. It encourages me and causes me not to be deterred in my pursuit of becoming a great leader. So that's what I love to say about that.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I enjoyed the feedback and comments from Steffi. Let me also pick it from this angle where it says, too often the skills and qualities of leaders lie dormant and undiscovered. Too often, the skills and qualities of leadership lie dormant and undiscovered. And that's very true. It's very true because many people have the leadership traits in them, and these skills, talents, traits are not discovered. And so it's not being tapped into to be groomed, and that leads to mentorship. So the mentor must be able to identify these skills in the potential mentee, tap into it, groom him or her to become the great person that person needs to be. Without that, that person is going to fail. And that person may feel timid, as we said earlier on. It may not develop its potential to its fullest optimum. And in fact, I read something and that was very quite interesting. In fact, when he started Youth Arise Organization, Chief MBA saw the lives of very young people and decided to build them up. And he built them to a certain stage that now bigger organizations and big men rather came to come and poach some of the trained people. It is very interesting where people are not willing to help the less developed, the underprivileged, the not knowing anything to develop themselves. But always want the fresh, ripe fruits. Who should go and bake the cake for you to come and eat? And that is where the work is. So the onus lies on the leaders that we have, quote unquote, or the mentors we have, quote unquote, to see the potential future in the younger ones and pick them. And that leads to mentorship in the book that he wrote earlier on. Mentor them, groom them to become more, to become better versions of themselves, in order to lead. So this is a brilliant point that he wrote here, and I think we all need to learn something from this. In fact, everybody should get this book and read, and it's going to help them to become great leaders in the foreseeable future. I'll pay here for it.
Yeah, so I would also like to choose the ordinary people have risen to become great leaders. Yes, and the author, Chief Moses Balfour, he put his life story in the book, which doesn't make the book just any material. It makes the book practical. It's not just a theory that you are reading and you are not familiar with. He quoted something here. He said, "People did not see that I deserved any such thing as a leadership portfolio. They wondered why a position should be given to me." So growing up, people didn't believe in him. They wondered why should we give you a position? You don't deserve it and all. But then looking at him now, and for him to lead Youth Arise organization, which I'm a beneficiary of its flagship program, Leadership Direct Training Program. I mean, had he not started it, I wouldn't know what I would be doing with my life now. And then look at Barack Obama, a Kenyan person rising to become the 44th president of America. When Anne Sullivan went to see Helen Keller, and on the first time when she was eating with the Kellers on the table, she said that the lady was a bright but spoiled child. Without Anne Sullivan, we wouldn't have been hearing of the famous Helen Keller and all that. Helen Keller was just an ordinary person. The Kellers weren't known. But because she had someone to hold her hand, who stood up for her and actually took her as one of hers, and then she held her hand and led her through all that. When she grew up, she also felt the need to stand for the rights of the disabled people. And now when we talk about Helen Keller, we are actually using her to influence and encourage people who can see, people who can hear. Because someone who couldn't hear, someone who couldn't see, has been able to write books, and we are there thinking that we can't do anything. We use her story to encourage ourselves. But she was just an ordinary person. So I believe that leaders like Moses Balfour, Barack Obama, Helen Keller, and all that, they were ordinary people who were able to rise to become great leaders. And it serves as an encouragement for me. Yes.
One of the key things I take from everybody's comments is that there is a need for mentorship for one to become a good leader.
Where there is no mentorship, there is no legacy. Do you know why? There is no transference of wisdom, of skill, of knowledge, of understanding. And I'm so sad as a person because I'm asking myself, will we be able to transfer knowledge, skill, understanding, and qualities? Will we be able to transfer the things that made us who we were or who we are?
And another thing I take from all of us is that everybody can become a leader. Can you share a personal experience or a personal example that is helping you to navigate the phases of leadership? I will stay with Charlotte because Charlotte is the vice president of the Procedures Club on the University of Ghana campus. So, as an emerging leader, can you share an experience or example to help you that helps you navigate the process?
Okay, so my story starts from my JHS, and the peak of it was at SHS. When I decided to stand up for something, I had people criticizing me and all that. So, with all those criticisms, I felt so tuned to myself. After SHS, I didn't want to do anything again. I wasn't the form rep in my class, but I was able to speak to my class members in certain circumstances and they could listen. Even when I go out and I try to speak to people, well, in my face, they will probably do that thing. But when I leave, they say so many things to the extent that even when I decided to go for a leadership position, I didn't even pass through vetting. And you see, such things, it affected me. Okay, I didn't even pass through vetting, and when it came that I didn't pass vetting, see, the whole school, Charlotte, and myself, I'm someone trying to come out of that my low self-esteem and all. So it was one time when I was at service and we had this group of people coming to our school. They said they are from Youth Arise organization, and because I saw Steffi, she being a senior and she was part of them, I actually thought that it was something good, so I bought the idea. And when I came home, they called me and made me come for the leadership diary training program. I know if you look at me on the first day of LDTP and look at me now, I don't think someone will give me a position as the vice president of the UG Proteges Club. It's someone who held my hand, and I'm grateful to Chief for that opportunity. That he doesn't look at right people. He look at the people who people wouldn't see as leaders, and then he coaches them to become great leaders. I think I've had my own advantage or benefit from Chief, and I would thank him for that.
That's a very interesting experience. I call that experience a handheld experience. Steffi, share with me an experience.
Okay, wow. When I was reading this chapter, I remembered when I became a leader in Eastern Region in 2020. My leader before me was wow. And so coming back to take the position to handle that affairs, I was like, can I match up to the standard, to the bar he set, to do what he did when he was leading? And so in the first year in my head, I was just like, I was so scared. I was so scared that I would not be able to get the kind of results that my leader was getting. I was so scared I would not be able to lead the team to victory, to be able to achieve what I wanted to achieve in the process. And trust me, being mentored by Mr. Moses, being in the team, being in the right organization was an amazing thing. And I take the fourth point, too often the skills and qualities of leaders lie dormant and undiscovered. And I realized that if I did not start the journey in 2020, in 2022 or 2023, I will not be the kind of leader that people walk up to me and like the Arthur story. People walk up to me in 2022 during our leadership diary training program. People came to me and they were like, "You are such a good leader. You're so this, you're so that, you're so this, you're so that." And I'm like, "But you had seen me in 2019 or in 2020 when I started leading a team. I did not believe that it was possible. I did not believe that I could do some of the things that I have done with my team because of the kind of work my team does. It gives a lot of experience, gives a lot of exposure. It causes you to move from one point to another, one location to another location, speaking to people, interacting with people. And because you have to speak to people, you are finding out things that you need to share. You're finding out things that you need to do to help build people to a certain point. So when I picked up leadership in Team Eastern, in Eastern Region of Youth Arise organization in 2020, I did not believe that I could do it. I was not sure. I was a good follower, I believe, because my leader trusted me as a good follower. But I was really doubting myself as to whether I could be a good leader, if I could lead a team to victory, if I could lead a team to the point where it needed to get to so that we could achieve our results. And so reading the chapter on becoming a great leader, seeing things that should not deter you from becoming a great leader, reading this book in 2022, I was realizing that the Arthur, my mentor, led me through the process, encouraged me through, and now when I'm with the team, I'm with my team, I'm able to do things. I see results, I see growth in my life, in my team as well, and it makes me better appreciate the book, better appreciate my story, better appreciate the whole concept of leadership. So that's what I'll say on that note.
It all starts with the mind.
I'll start with that.
And when we return from this break, my guest and I will delve deeper into the story of the Bostons.
If you are going to become a great leader, then you must decide and you must understand that leadership is not what? A bed of roses. Can I tell you something about the glory of leadership? The glory of leadership is succession. The glory of leadership.
In this chapter, the author shares an uplifting story of Demosthenes. I want us to take a look at it and then we get to discuss it.
Sure.
On page 38 and 39, you can find the story there. At this particular time, thinking of my team, the story of Demosthenes comes to mind quite as vividly as I read it many years ago. Demosthenes lived during the golden age of Greece, when all public disputes were settled by oratory and more commonly public speaking. As a young man, Demosthenes went before the assembly in Athens, an unruly legislative body of about 6,000 men, to speak on an important issue and failed at it. To use a modern expression, Demosthenes bombed. His voice was weak, his thoughts were muddled, and the longer he talked, the worse he got. He was hissed at and booed off the platform. Demosthenes vowed it would never happen again. First, he learned speech writing and became great at it. He became so good that he was soon hired by wealthy men to write their speeches. Then, he went to the shores of the Aegean Sea, where he strengthened his voice by shouting into the wind for hours at a time to enhance and strengthen his voice. To improve his diction, he practiced speaking with pebbles in his mouth. To overcome his fear, he practiced with a sword hanging over his head. To clarify his presentation, he studied the tricks of the masters. Years later, Demosthenes stood before the assembly to warn leaders of the great threat posed by Philip II of Macedonia. He inspired the assembly with his eloquence and laid before it some reasoned ideas for dealing with the Macedonians. When he finished, the audience rose and shouted in unison, "Let us go and fight Philip." So I'll start with you, Sir Nathaniel. What do you make of the story of Demosthenes?
It's a great story. And in fact, I looked at the front cover of the book, Becoming a Great Leader. In Becoming a Great Leader, in chapter 3, further talks about, can I become a leader? That's the big question. And the story that I just read threw back my mind to a few processes Demosthenes went through. He was a young chap that we all got to know that in those age, you have to speak publicly before you be accepted. The same scenario happens in the modern world. Once someone is not able to talk publicly, he thinks he is not a good leader. What did he do? He started to work on himself. In working on yourself can be done in two ways. Either you work on yourself personally to develop, or perhaps you get someone in high authority to help you work on yourself. That's where it links us to the earlier book written by Chief MBA, Mentorship, The Force of Mentorship, where you have an engaged mentor helping a mentee through the learning process to develop him. And it's the same philosophy in here. Demosthenes went through a series of processes to develop himself to become the great leader he wanted to become. First of all, what did he do? He started working on his public speaking. He realized that he couldn't speak well. He went to the seashore and started shouting to better his voice. He realized that he couldn't write, so he worked on his speech. And now he was writing speeches for the big men, those quote unquote who are leaders. What did he do? After bettering and making himself possible in all these areas, he came back to the same people who were booing and shouting at him. That's what, oh, he's a bum. He can't perform. He can't be a leader. What lesson do we learn in here? Anyone can be a leader. Anyone can be a leader. Once you tell yourself, I am going to develop myself and go through the various rudiments, you can become a great leader. Written in here by Chief MBA. And he has broken it down systematically that when you follow it critically to the end of this last page, you become a great leader. We all have to bring ourselves or lower ourselves or humble ourselves to go through the various rudiments of the learning process. And that's where the pain is, Steffi. It's very difficult to go through the learning process. It's like picking up a gold. Gold in its natural state is black, a black stone. It has no value. But when it goes through the process of it being changed, high heat temperatures, it burns, and that is where the pain is. After it burns over a period of time and it comes out as a refined gold, you have to go like, oh, I love this gold. I want this piece. It costs this. But at that stage, the gold will not tell you that, oh, I went through a tougher phase of developing myself. The monster is not going to tell you that I went to stand at a sea all by myself, shouting against the waves to better my voice. I went through the pain of learning how to write speeches. So we all ought to go through the process of learning, to develop ourselves through the process to become the great leader that we ought to be.
I think to add on to what Senat said concerning the preparation stage being painful, with the Muslim story, I read that to prevent him from going out or to prevent him from going against what he has said, that it will never happen again, he created a subterranean study, so which was underground, and when he was going, he will shave a portion of his head. So till that part had grown, because if he has shaved a portion of his head, he can't come outside or travel. So it will force him to read and practice his speech writing. I also read that he had a problem with his left arm. That anytime he's frightened or he's terrified, he raises it and then it shows his discomfort. So he just created this the imaginary sword, and then he knew that if he raises his arm when he's terrified in his speech, it was going to cut him. So it's just like that. You have to do some things that will prevent you from getting distracted. You have to go the extra mile. If you have to go into your closet, if you have to go out of if you have to go where no one is, you have to do it to better yourself.
From her angle, it brings me to the point of preparing in obscurity, staying hidden, because you realize that he came out in public and it was not good. So he decided to go and hide, stay hidden for a period of time before he came back in the line. Makes me better appreciate our seasons of preparation, make me better appreciate when we are being hidden, when we are being kept to go, because it looked like it was magic. You know, if you see him outside, like Mr. Nathaniel was saying about the story of the gold, it was black. And it went through a process. It was being prepared in obscurity. When the gold comes out, we don't see that it went through that hard process. And the challenges of us as young people is that we don't give time for the process. We don't go through the process. We are in a hurry to be in the limelight. We're in a hurry to be known for something. But you realize that any skill you learn, there are experts, there are gurus in the field. And you know, when you come out and you think you know something, they can beat you with something new. So the Masterless did something it's so striking, it's so peculiar, it's so amazing how he was in obscurity. He went to hide. He was away from the public, went to the seaside where nobody was there, screaming into the sea. You saw that he was hungry. He was hungry to put across a message because he believed in what he wanted to tell the people. And he wanted the people to appreciate what he was saying. And so he went through the process of preparation. And for me, that part stands out for me. Preparing in obscurity.
It's one of the chapters that we'll be discussing in our next episodes to come. Preparation period of a leader. But before we take leave of you, I want to know what do you make of the final his victory at the end of his preparation period. You know, when he went later on to when he went back to the assembly, everybody rose up and shouted, "Let us go and fight." What do you make of his victory at this point?
Okay, so he found out what he wasn't doing well, and he vowed to himself that it was not going to happen again. And what did he do after vowing to himself? He went to prepare. So with constant practice, he will be able to break limits. Yes.
And Steffi?
I would say that it means that if we go through the process, victory is assured. It gives us confidence that when you go through the process, when you go through the journey of becoming a great leader, when you build yourself, when you build capacity, build momentum to go in to do what you have to do, your result is assured, or it's possible to get some one level of result. So that's what I make of the victory part of the story. It was so exciting that the people rose up and went. I was picturing it in my head, like playing the scene. I was like, they're all shouting and throwing their hands up in the air to go. Sounds amazing.
So no matter the situation in our lives, we can also become a great leader. Share with me your final thought before we leave today.
Absolutely. There is always victory at the end. The same people who will laugh at you today will be the same people that will praise you tomorrow. And if that's going to happen, it lies in your hands. If they are laughing at you today, take it in good faith. Build yourself against that laughter. In obscurity, build yourself, gather energy, prepare yourself, learn, add value to yourself, and then you come back bigger and better. And those same people will now clap and shout and call you the great leader to lead that same people to serve a common purpose. So the ball is in our court. We have to develop ourselves to become great leaders because the innate is in us. Let's go out and do it.
Let's go out and do it. Thank you very much, Mr. Nathaniel. Thank you very much, Miss Steffi, and thank you very much, Miss Charlotte, for being with me here today as we discuss the chapter, Can I Become a Leader? Dear viewers, I encourage you to get a copy of the book, Becoming a Great Leader, which is on sale at the SU Bookshop in the SU Tower, located around Ridge. In this chapter, there's a self-assessment form on investigating your leadership potential. And this activity helps you to find and develop your leadership edge. Catch you again next week, Saturday, 5 p.m. as we get to discuss the forms of leadership. Stay tuned.
So I take it as, watching a movie about myself. If I was to sit down and to watch a movie about myself, would I be happy? Would I be excited? Would I, be so sad at the actions that I took? So with reading from The Force of Mentorship, actually, taking responsibility for one's own growth is really key to self-leadership. Because even identity alone, I can say identity alone can have an entire show about that, about the 6 existential questions, about what people need to know about themselves before they lead.